Okay. And then stop it.
So go ahead and pause it. Don't stop it, just pause it. Should be a pause feature.
I don't see a pause option. It's either stop or cancel.
Oh, there's not a pause feature for you?
It says that on the, when I click the button, oh, wait a minute, let me try it again. If I hit this button, boom. Okay, time to get started. Good morning, everybody. My name is Jim. I'm the presenter this morning of this lovely presentation. We are so excited to have you here. We have two groups of people. We have one group of people that intended to do this virtually, and we have another group of people who were originally planning to do this in person downtown today, and unfortunately now needs to join the virtual presentation. So we are welcoming you both groups to this training. You should have all received an email or two from Renee Locke that had some files to download. One of them is a password sheet. If you have the ability, if you have not downloaded that and printed it off, if you have the ability to do that now, that would be great. And also to download the test booklet if you do not have it. It's the 6744 test booklet. Hopefully you've got it because we're going to refer to it a lot today. All right. So welcome again. Free tax prep, VITA, new volunteer
Excuse
training.
me. I don't think I have that email you were referring to.
Beth, what is your last name? Matt can send it to you.
My last name is Thomas, Bethany Thomas.
Okay. Free tax prep VITA. What does VITA stand for? Well, it's an IRS term, right? Everything's an acronym. VITA is Volunteer Income Tax Assistance Program. And the free tax prep is a description of what we do. We do tax preparation for free for people of low and moderate income in the tri-state area. Today's session is for new volunteers. If you're an experienced volunteer and you tuned in to learn what's new for tax season 2021, you are 1 week too early. Come back next week. We will go over all of that next week. This week is just for new volunteers, focused on the fundamentals of technology. All right. So, who are we? I am Jim Uhas. I am a site coordinator in Loveland. Because we have a combined team, we have quite a supporting staff behind me. Monica Ibarra and Chris Prime and Kathy Leveri and Mary Lepper and Charles Lewis. So half of us were intending to be downtown and the other half were going to be virtual, and now we're all virtual. But probably among the 6 or 7 of us, we probably have easily over 100 years of VITA experience. So we are quite the experienced crowd. As a overview, a copy of all of the slides that I'm doing today will be sent to you, most likely on Monday. And this presentation is being recorded so that we can post that recording also sometime in the near future. I won't commit to that going up on Monday. About halfway through, we're going to take a 10-minute break, and we will end very close to 12 noon, just so you can plan the rest of your afternoon. So they say that by noon or 1 o'clock, the temperature will be a lot warmer outside. So I think that's good. All right. So free tax prep VITA. VITA is a IRS aspect. United Way of Greater Cincinnati is our regional partner or regional sponsor. And then we represent multiple actual site preparation sites all across the tri-state. Mary and Monica work in Northern Kentucky. Kathy, Charles, and I work in Ohio. So let's see. As I mentioned before, have your 6744 test booklet available to you. If you don't have it physically, try to download it onto your desktop so you can kind of page through it with me. The other one that we'll get to very close to the end is the 4012 resource guide. This is our classic Bible. This is the training guide that we have available to ourselves. And almost every preparer brings it with them to every tax preparation session. If you lose your Zoom connection, it happens. Just zoom back on in, okay? Just reconnect. All right. Normal Zoom etiquette, nothing new here. Please set your audio to mute. Because there are now close to 30 of us, please use the chat feature to pose any initial questions that you may have. We will stop periodically along the way to check on questions and chats, but please use that feature. And this is an important one. And Monica, this is where you get to teach us again. How do you change your Zoom name? We want your name to be the name that you use to register for your class.
So if your name is not how it appears on your, on your little frame, then on your frame on the upper right-hand side, there should be two small little boxes in blue. And one of them is mute. And then the one all the way on the right-hand side is just 3 dots. You click on the 3 dots, and then that'll bring you a drop-down menu all the way down at the bottom. I think it says rename. Just click on that, and then that will allow you to put whatever you want to in the box and just put in your full name. Thanks.
All right, thank you very much. Let's see if I got anything else to tell you guys about today. All right. I think most of you have already done this. Let me back up a sec. What are we going to do today? We're going to get into 3 different web portals, one with the United Way, one with the IRS, and one with our tax software, TaxSlayer. And we're going to go through the process for logging in and creating user IDs for those various portals, okay? Some of you are here to be graders or screeners, and then you just need the very preliminary part of today's presentation, basically until the break. Other people are here to be preparers, and you get to stick around the entire session and come back next week for some additional training. As a reminder, this is again an IRS program, so everybody needs to certify at some level in order to serve in the program. We'll go over that in a little bit of detail. All right. First place is at the United Way. So we want you to register as a free tax prep volunteer at United Way of Greater Cincinnati. It doesn't matter if you plan to work in Ohio or Indiana or Kentucky. We still want you to register in the United Way of Greater Cincinnati website. And you see on the screen, this is the web address for getting there. And when you get there, you simply click on volunteer or register for a class. I forget which way it's worded. And it will lead you through an input screen in which they record your name and your. Monica, you got something to add? Nope, okay. And that's how you sign in. Most of you should have already done this if you've registered for the class, because I think you need to go through this registration process before you get the link to attend the class. Another way is just to, well, first of all, just register for United Way. To volunteer, you can work directly with the site coordinator, like several of us on the support staff this morning, or go through United Way through Matthew Long, our primary contact, and he'll get you signed up for volunteer opportunities. All right. We're not going to go through that particular login because it's very straightforward. And again, we expect most of you have already done it. Okay, this is the important book for today, the 6744 VITA TCE Volunteer Assisters Test and Retest. And I will kind of walk us through this book in some detail. We're doing 2021 returns, so that's the one that we're focused on. And that's what we're being tested on, whether or not we know the 2021 tax law. All right. So those of us who have been doing this a long time say, yet again, because you have to take this test every year, even though you've been doing it for 10 or 12 years. All right. If you've got this book handy, grab a pen, grab a pencil, grab a highlighter, and I want you to get ready to mark it up. This is your book. If you've got one, it's your book. Make notes, draw circles, and away we go. All right. All right. This 6744 test booklet, 242 pages. Oh, but not to worry. We only do a portion of it. We don't have to take all of the tests in this booklet. All right. So I'm going to review with you the table of contents, the overview page, and the Volunteer Protection Act. And then we'll go a little bit deeper. All right. So page 1 of the 6744, you'll notice that I've got 4 lines highlighted. The Volunteer Standard of Conduct Test. That's a test that everyone is required to take if you're serving at a volunteer tax site. And in fact, before you finish today, you should have taken and passed this particular test. The second one is the Intake Interview and Quality Review Test. Most sites require this test also, even if you're just screening the paperwork for people coming in. Then the last 2 things that I've got highlighted are the Advanced Course Scenario and Test and the Advanced Course Retest. So what we encourage you to do, even as a new first-time preparer, is to start with the Advanced Course Test. All right. In each of these tests, you actually submit answers into the IRS website called Lincoln Learn. We'll get there in a few minutes. And you submit your answers and you get a score. If you get 80% or more, you have passed the test. If you have passed the test, you do not get a chance to take it over again. You can't say, I got 85%, I want to get 100. Nope, you got 85, you pass, you're done. But if you do miss a question on any of the tests, please make sure you mark it in your test booklet so you know what go back and review. All right, next page. Page 2 of the table of contents is the whole list of other tests that are included in the test booklet, and none of these are highlighted. We don't take any of these tests. So again, the first part of the book is what we focus on. The back half of the book is irrelevant to us. You know, pages 119 through the end, we don't care about. All right. We love flowcharts. So here's the similar thing. This is the schematic of what's in the certification book. Everybody starts with the volunteer standard of conduct. You have to do that test before you can do anything else. Then you take the intake interview test. And from there, you've got 4 different options of other tests you can take once you pass that. But for you new preparers, it's just we want you to come down to intake interview to the advanced test. All right. And again, this test booklet has lots of tests that we do not need to take. You can breeze through them, look at them, but this is what we, as a collaborative of Greater Cincinnati Free Tax Prep, this is what we focus on. This is what we do. All right. So again, if you've got your test booklets, go ahead, mark it up, make sure you highlight or circle what I am showing you on the screen. All right. Before I go to the next screen, I'm not viewing the chat. Is there anything I need to mention from the chat?
Yeah, Jim, I think the very last question, I think we can elaborate on why we need to take the advanced test first.
Primarily, there's a couple of reasons. The advanced test, you don't have to take the advanced test first. We encourage you to take it first. All right. You can start with the basic and go to advanced. We prefer you start with advanced because once you've done that, you can do you can assist any taxpayer who comes into one of our sites. Okay. The advanced test has things like itemized deductions that many of you personally know from your own personal tax returns. That's not in the basic test. The advanced test includes small business income, somebody who's a house painter, somebody who's a caregiver, somebody who's a house cleaner. We do those types of returns routinely. Again, part of advanced, not part of basic. So we really encourage you to take advanced. If basically, once you pass advanced, you're done. You don't have to do anything else. You can go, if for some reason you do not pass advanced, you can go back to basic and then try that. But we think it's better for you to start with advanced and work your way down. Other people want to comment?
Just remember that you have 2 chances on the advanced test and the basic test.
And you can take the advanced test and never take the basic test. You can just be finished with advanced. No, you do not have to clear any other test for advanced, except for the standards of conduct, the intake and interview, and then you can just go to advanced, take that and be done. You don't have to ever take the beginner test or the basic test.
Right. Okay. So some of you may be concerned. I'm helping people do tax returns. What if I screw it up? What if I make a mistake? What if I miss something? What's my personal liability? Well, the good news is we're all volunteers. So we are protected by something called the Volunteer Protection Act that says unless we're doing something willfully wrong, deliberately trying to create, as described here, criminal misconduct, we have no personal liability for acts of omissions or things that occur if we're operating within the scope of the program. So what that says is, first of all, don't be concerned about liability. But it also says, make sure you're operating within the scope of the program. So you need to know what the outlines of what we're allowed to do and not do are included. Now, the scope of the program includes to the taxpayers that we're serving. All right. One of the little benefits of being a volunteer is you're allowed to use this particular software to do your own personal return. And on your personal return, you don't have the same scope limitations. So I use this for my own personal return, and I have a couple of issues in my tax life that are out of scope, but I can still use the return, the software. Because we're unpaid volunteers, we are protected from liability for acts of or omissions that occur while acting within the scope of our responsibilities. Okay. So once you are certified, you actually sign a particular form that said, yes, I am certified. This Volunteer Liability Protection Act is stated on that document as well. Okay. All right. All right. I want you to walk with me through the actual standard of conduct exam. So if you've got your test booklet, turn to page 14. If you've got it downloaded, try and download it to page 14. I'm going to switch to the screen in which I share that so I can walk through it with you. Share. Stop share. There it is. There we go. Share screen. Boom. Okay, so you should now all be able to see the 6744 on my screen. What page did I say to go to? 14, I believe. You scroll down to 14. Volunteer Standard of Conduct Test. Okay, is it properly visible? All right. So we've already said a lot of this. You take this Volunteer Standard of Conduct Test. Annually, we have to pass it, score of 80% or higher. Then there's a IRS form 13615 that says we've completed taking the test and all of the tests we take. All right. So the first question on this test on page 14 says, prior to working at a VITA site, oh, wait a minute, VITA TCE. Why do they keep calling it VITA TCE? Well, this is actually two programs. There's a VITA program that focuses on low to moderate income working people. And there's a TCE, Tax Counseling for the Elderly, that focuses on retirees. And they're all joined together as part of a joint program from the IRS. So that's what the VITA TCE means. Anyway, all volunteers Graders, client facilitators, tax preparers, quality reviewers must pass the test, sign and date, pass the advanced test, all of those things, just the first two. Well, I can't sit here and give you the answer to any of these, but you can kind of figure out from what I just talked about, what you think the right answer would be. But let me make a comment. There are various roles that we perform at each of our sites. And each of them is as important as another one, all right? The first person a taxpayer meets when they come into a site is the grader or the receptionist or the client facilitator, whatever the term might be used. They really help set the tone of taking a taxpayer and putting them at ease for coming in to get their taxes done. There's a screener that makes sure that we go through the paperwork and understand that the taxpayer has tax situation that's within our scope of service, and make sure they've got all their documents. Then we're probably best known for the tax preparers. These are the people that actually sit there and do tax preparation. And then as part of the VITA program, every tax that has been prepared, tax return that's been prepared, has to be quality reviewed by somebody other than their preparer. So normally it could be a designated reviewer or it could be a peer reviewer. All right. Okay. But the point of this is wherever you best fit in serving is a need that we have. All right. And I'm not saying that just because my wife is a greeter. All right. Okay. So go ahead or look at this particular first question, think about it and circle your answer in the test booklet. Or if you don't have the test booklet, write it down on a sheet of paper. Question 2. Can a volunteer be removed or barred for violating the standard of conduct? Okay, where's the cheat sheet on this one? It's on the back cover of the booklet that you've got open. So if you've got your 6744 booklet, and on the cover of the input page is a list of information about the program. And one of the comments on that particular page is the answer to this question. I have to. All right. So
Can you
again,
repeat-
question-
Can you repeat that, please?
Sure. The on the back page of the cover of your 6744 is a summary of some of the key aspects of the program, including the volunteer standard of conduct. And it also helps you answer this particular question. Okay. So write down the answer to number 2, or circle it in your book if you've got your book. Question 3. So you may have heard me mention like 6 times already that we're a volunteer organization, that we're doing this for free, that we're a free tax prep site. So if somebody comes in and says, I know you're a free tax site, but you guys are great, and I really appreciate what you're doing. Here's $20. What do you do? Okay. That's what question 3 is about. Let me tell you, this really happens. Every year I get a couple of people wanting to offer a thanks as a tip or thanks in payment for services rendered. And I say, sorry, I can't accept that. We're a free tax site. Oh, wait a minute. So it's not number 1. It's not A. I don't get to keep the money. All right. But I'll go on and comment about this to say, if somebody really insists on making a payment, I say, the facility that you're working in, that serving in, is usually a volunteer organization or a nonprofit organization, whether it's a church or a community action agency or whatever it is. They say they love donations. You can always write a check to them. All right. I've got one guy who says, yeah, I really don't like giving to your church, Jim. And I say, that's fine. So he writes a check to United Way and we mail it off to United Way. So, but we personally can never receive any kind of payment. Okay. Let's see. Whoop. Question 4. So again, write down the answer. Question 4. Jake's doing a return for Jill. Jill says, I don't have a bank account. Well, what do we do? Well, if you don't have a bank account, they're going to have to mail you a check. Okay, that'll work. It'd be 3 or 4 weeks longer than if you got direct deposit. Ouch. I need that money right away. So what can we do? So Jill says to Jake, hey, how about you deposit the money in your checking account, Jake, and then when you get it, you give it to me. All right. So what do you think of that situation? A, B, or C? What should Jake do? The only comment that I'll make on this particular one is, yes, we strongly encourage direct deposit. It really does speed up the taxpayers' ability to get their refunds. And actually, this whole thing that we've gone through in the last 2 years about stimulus payments is that if you had direct deposit, you would have gotten your stimulus payments at the beginning of the queue instead of at the end of the queue. So lots of good reasons to do direct deposit. All right. Question 5. Max. Does a return for Allie. Allie doesn't have any insurance. Okay. That's one of the things we need to determine sometimes, if they have insurance or not, and if they had insurance through the marketplace. So that's kind of a normal discussion that we have with the taxpayer. But Max takes it a step further. He says, oh, Allie doesn't have insurance. I know somebody who sells insurance. I'll pass the information to her. That person I know happens to be my wife. Is this an appropriate action on Max's behalf? Should Max be taking this step to notify his wife of Allie's personal information? So is it a violation of standard of conduct to pass the information on to his wife? All right. Or no, this is just a favor because this is really good, but it also helps secure business. So anyway, so again, think through the logical thing of this. We're a free tax program. We operate with integrity. We don't have to have insurance every year to avoid a penalty. That's good. From a taxpayer standpoint, that's their personal choice now. But we can take it too far in a situation like this. All right. A, B, C, or D for question 5. Question 6, moving right along. Bob's an IRS tax certified preparer, and he tells the taxpayer, I know that you're a house cleaner and you get paid on a 1099 from some of your clients, but you probably got a client on the side that pays you in cash. You know, nobody knows, the IRS doesn't know about that cash payment. So he says to the taxpayer, you don't need to talk about that cash payment because the IRS never sees it. So Bob does the return, doesn't include the cash income. The taxpayer never indicates cash income on his intake sheet, the 13614/C. So now it comes to the quality reviewer. Jim, that's me. All right, I'm doing the quality review. I don't know about this conversation between Bob, my tax preparer, and the taxpayer about any unreported cash income. I'm looking at the intake sheet, nothing indicated there. There are no notes. There's no entry for cash payments. All right. So I go ahead and I approve the return. We print it, we have them sign it, and it's done. From a volunteer standard of conduct point of view, what happened? Bob, the tax law certified preparer, violated the standard of conduct. Jim, the reviewer, he violated it. Betty, the coordinator, who hasn't been involved at all in this discussion, she violated it, or nobody has violated the standard of conduct. All right, who violated the standard of conduct in this particular scenario? Okay. Yes, we are to report all income, cash income included, tip income included. When we are doing tax returns for hairdressers, for restaurant workers, for anybody who normally gets tip income, ask about cash payments. As a routine, anytime I have somebody that has a small business income, I always need to ask, do you have any supplemental cash payments? All right. We can only do what they tell us, but we are required to ask the due diligence question about, do you have other cash income? Even to the point of interest. A bank will not send you a 1099 interest statement if it's less than $10. But if you receive one cash interest, or if you receive one 1099 INT for interest, we're supposed to ask if you had any other accounts that drew interest or at any other banks. So we are to report all cash income, regardless if there's documentation or not. Okay. I'll take a further aside. Somebody comes in and you can tell that, yes, they have some, but they won't admit to it. Or you ask them the question and then they say yes, and then they say, how much? And you say, then they say, no, maybe I don't. You know, that's a discussion you got to have about integrity of the program with that particular taxpayer. You've given me the heads up that you've got some cash income, we need to report it, okay? If the taxpayer, if you don't want to complete that return, I encourage you not to. Get your site coordinator involved in a discussion with the taxpayer. They either now need to report the income or we can't complete the return. I take a very hard stance on that in my particular site. Okay, moving on. Question 7. Again, this is all related to volunteer standard of conduct. Sue, the site coordinator, sees Erin, one of her volunteers, being led out of a bank in handcuffs. Oh my goodness. Arrested for suspicion of embezzlement. Man, this is pretty bad. So the following Saturday, Erin's out on bail and comes in to work at the tax site. this is kind of like public information that he's a suspect in this embezzlement charge. What should Sue do? She pulls him aside, has a discussion with him and said, sorry, you can't work here. This is a site with high integrity. We have standards of conduct and you have violated those. Please leave the site. In addition, she says, she takes the step to say, I've got to report this to the IRS, that this particular individual is no longer a qualified volunteer because of violation of standard of conduct. Okay. Are those two steps the appropriate steps? To ask the person to leave the site and to report it to the IRS? Yes or no? So again, mark the question answers in your book or write them down on your sheet of paper. We're just reinforcing, we are an organization, we're a operation that has high integrity, okay? We take this volunteer standard of conduct seriously, and all of our sites in the area operate against those standards. Okay, question 8. Heidi's working the intake station. Okay, this is the person in the front lobby usually. And she explains to the taxpayer, this is what expected to do. What should Heidi say? All right. 1, there's an intake form that you got to fill out prior to having your return prepared. 2, you're going to be interviewed by a preparer and asked any additional questions the preparer needs for clarification. 3, you need to participate in a quality review of your tax return by somebody other than the preparer. 4, all 3 of those things. So you should be able to gather from the comments we've already made this morning what the appropriate answer is. A, B, C, or D. All right. But the other thing question 8 points out is not only do we have details of tax law we need to follow, we have a detailed process we need to follow. Okay. All right. Question 9. Volunteers should verify that the taxpayer and spouse or secondary taxpayer, if married jointly, has a government issue photo ID. And they must provide verification of a taxpayer identification numbers. Most of the time, that's their social security card, social security number. And if they don't have a social security card, they probably have an ITIN, income tax identification number, I believe is that acronym. And you must have one of these for everybody on your tax return. Photo ID for taxpayer and spouse, taxpayer verified identification numbers for everybody on the return, including the kids. Yes or no, true or false. Okay. So somebody comes in and they don't have a social security card with them. They don't have a social security statement with them. But they bring in a W-2 that's got their social security number printed on it. Is a W-2 a government issued document? No, it's a document sent to the government. It's not a government issued document. All right, so we don't accept W-2 social security numbers as proof of social security numbers. So particularly early in the season, if somebody comes in without a social security card at my site and they need to have one, we say one of 2 things. go get one, go home and get it. If you can't find it, go to the Social Security website and download it. Or B, maybe we'll actually start your return, but we won't let you sign it until you bring in verification. It depends on how busy we are, how backed up we are, which of those two approaches I'll take. Okay, but we do insist on Social Security numbers, Social Security cards, ITIN sheets for everybody on the return. Believe me, unfortunately, this is a routine occurrence. We see this every year. Question 10. Volunteer certified greeter. So I mentioned this a little bit earlier. This particular taxpayer has indicated that they have self-employment income, which is an advanced level certification. All of the other questions on her intake sheet have the letter B, not the letter A. So when Mary assigns this return to a tax preparer, what level of certification does a tax preparer need to have? Okay. Do they need to be advanced? Does it only need to be basic? Because most of the answers are basic. It really doesn't matter. Any level is okay. Or you don't even need to have tax law certification. A, B, C, or D. So just like in question 8, where I talked about a very detailed process, this question says we have to be compliant with tax law and we have to be compliant with the process. All right, we need to know what the rules of the game are. Okay. We site coordinators, and sometimes we sites get visited by the IRS and actually observed what's going on in our sites. Okay. You don't want to have to change the rules when somebody shows up. You want to say, you know, we always do it this way. We always follow the rules. We always have people fill out the intake sheet. We always make sure of the appropriate level. We always try and ensure we always do ensure we give it to a person, taxpayer, with the appropriate level of certification. All right. Well, great. Hey, congratulations. You just took the standard of conduct test. All right. What follows that on the next several pages is the retest, asking the same questions in a little different way. We're not going to go over that because I think these questions in the amount of detail we've gone through already should give you an indication of what the appropriate answers are. Rather, we're going to go have you take the test right now in the IRS website. All right. So this is a working class. You get to actually sign on. So I'm going to close this screen and go back to my PowerPoints. All right, share screen. Part A, go to share. All right. Okay, this is what we just finished, right? Pages 14 to 20. We actually did the volunteer standard of conduct test. We had you mark the responses on your book. All right, we had a brief discussion. Okay, dialogue. Okay, monologue. I did all the talking. All right, but now we're actually going to have you go in and take the test. All right, on your laptops, on your computers, on your desktops, if you can, please sign in to this particular website. linklearncertification.com. What you're going to do is to set up your personal IRS account for taking these tests. All right. This is not the same as your personal tax return account. This is a separate testing account. So this IRS, you're going to create a user ID and a password. I'm going to walk you through that, and I'm going to show you how you take the exam. Okay. So go to linklearncertification.com. This is the screen that should show up on your browser. Okay, you see here on the left-hand column, halfway down, I have got circled, set up a new IRS account. So click on Create Account. Okay. Helpers, watch the chat, see if people are getting there. Okay.
Hey, Jim, you might want to, Charles posted a link in the chat that people can just click on if they don't want to
thank
put it
you.
in the search box.
Yep, good. Okay, click on the Create Account button on the left. And this is how you fill out the first page of the registration. You are group category number 1. You're a VITA volunteer. Question 2, no, you don't want to take the site coordinator certification test. Question 3, no, you are not an instructor. This is the strangest, next one's the strangest question. Do you plan to volunteer in the program? Why would you ever answer no if you're on the screen? Of course you want to volunteer in the program. All right. The next one is training source. It's a drop-down menu. We suggest you click the word or the option other. All right, pretty simple. VITA volunteer, no site coordinator test, no, you're not an instructor, no, you're not an IRS manager. Yes, you plan to volunteer, your training source is other. All right, next page. All right, the difficult question. What is your first name? It has to be your legal first name that shows up on your driver's license. So this is a new requirement. I used to put my name as Jim. Now it has to be James. All right, because on my driver's license, it has to be my legal name. Same for you. What's your last name? All right. SEID, you don't need to worry about that. Create a username. Create a password and confirm the password. All right. Put in your personal home email address and confirm that. Your email address is really important because if you ever forget your password, they're going to send you an email to reset it. All right. Your site coordinator cannot reset it. I cannot reset it. Matt Long cannot reset it. You got to get it from the IRS, and it only comes through your personal email. Now, remember that password sheet we had you download at the very beginning of our discussion? Write down your username, write down your password on that sheet so you don't forget it. At a minimum, if you don't have that sheet, write it on your inside the cover of your test booklet. You want to write it down. Don't want to forget this. Okay. Next screen, or the bottom of that screen. What time zone are we in? I think it's about a third of the way down the list. We're in Eastern time zone. Who's our partner organization? Officially, we're part of United Way of Greater Cincinnati. So we encourage you to give them the credit. Number of years you have volunteered. If you're taking this test, you have volunteered for year 1. Okay. For the moment, that's all you need to do. But I'm going to show you another screen about the next drop down. Professional status for continuing education credits. If you happen to be an enrolled agent, a non-credentialed tax return preparer, a certified public accountant, a CPA, a certified financial planner, or an attorney, you get to earn continuing education credits by volunteering in the VITA program. And I think you need to work, I forget what it is, 20 hours or something, and you get 14 CE credits. But you need to indicate which of these levels of professional status you are, okay? We have among the program many CPAs that volunteer to do tax work. Sometimes their professional life had nothing to do with taxes, but they were still a CPA. I had a certified financial planner working with me at my site. I've had an attorney working with me at my site. This extra CE credits is a really nice little kick bonus for people who volunteer. But please ensure you indicate which level you are or which status you are. All right. So I think that, yep, that completes the registration process. I know I did it rather laboriously, but at the same time, I wanted you to make sure and you didn't have to stop and think too much about how to answer the particular questions. So this is what we did. We went to Lincoln Learn certification. We created a user ID and password. Now I'm going to show you how to take the test. Sign into your account using your user ID, using your password. And when you do, you will see this particular screen pop up, VITA TCE Central. This banner that is at the top has 2 tabs, certification test and my account. The my account tab just shows you what you've just entered as you created your account. I go into the my account tab once a year to change the number of years that I've served. I went into it last year to change my first name when they required legal first names. All right. The next part of the banner is 6 different options for different kinds of tests. We want you to click on the Advanced Test tab. Say that 3 times quickly, Advanced Test tab. And select Volunteer Standard of Conduct Exam. All right. This particular screen happens to be my account. I've already taken the test. Okay. Click on the exam. And I don't think I've got a screenshot of what happens next. Nope. Okay. You then walk through the test, through the 10 questions, all right? You say, I think it's in the top right, it says start, And then there's a lot of, next to go from one page to the next question, to the next question. At the very end of the test, there's a submit button in which they will instantly grade your test. Okay. 8 correct answers, 9 correct answers, 10 correct answers, you have passed the test. All right. We actually want you to do it right now. If you've got the ability, if you've signed on, we want you to go in and take the test right now.
The first one, right?
Volunteer standard of conduct exam,
Thanks.
the first one. How we doing, Mary? You're my monitor.
All the questions have been asked. It looks, I don't see anybody asking for more time, so we're okay right now.
We're okay at the
Anybody
moment.
needs time to, let
Yep.
us know.
All right. All right, since we've already been through the test and because I had you write down all of the answers you thought you had, it should be pretty quick. All right. We're not asking for a show of hands. We're not asking for tell us what you missed. Hopefully you've all passed that very basic, I call it an ethics test. I told my wife, you got to take this every year. And if you need to study for it, we got other issues. This is just, if you're a good, outstanding citizen, member of our community, you should be able to take this test and pass it without any problems. All right. The second test, which starts on page 24 of the 6744 test booklet, is called the Intake Interview and Quality Review Test. We're not going to walk through this test in detail like we did the first one. All right. We want you to take this test this coming week or this afternoon or tomorrow when it's raining, whatever. You might want to look at both the test questions and the retest questions. If you love IRS publications, you can download publication 5101 and you can read through this, I think it's a PowerPoint, like 50 pages of how to answer 10 questions. But again, take test 2, intake interview questions and quality review on your own. All right. Among those questions, I had a couple of comments. One of the things that I want you to make sure you understand is this intake interview sheet is really critical. Okay. Let me see. If any of you are watching me on my monitor, it kind of looks like this. All right. It's this multi-part form that every taxpayer needs to fill out. They need to fill it out every year they come to us because tax situations change, dependents change, addresses change, phone numbers change. Every year they need to fill it out. And it's absolutely critical. All right. Another aspect of this intake interview and quality review test gets into, well, how much do we probe? And I like to say, we're not auditors. We don't need to see documentation for everything. We need to see every tax form, but we don't need to see documentation for all of their expenses. I don't want to see your receipts. But in our discussions with the taxpayer, we have to do something what I call pass the smell test. Do we think that the person is giving us straight answers? Okay. We have to answer and ask the due diligence questions. Do you have any other cash income? Do you have any other interest? You have joint custody of your child. Did the child really live with you for more than 6 months? Those types of questions. Finally, another aspect of this intake interview is this is the taxpayer's return. They sign it. We don't sign it. They are legally responsible. We have the Volunteer Protection Act. We have no liability, okay? The other aspect of that, if they don't like it, if they don't sign it, we don't file it. All right? They have to agree to it. Then we can file it, all right? But in your discussions with the taxpayer, remind them, this is their tax return, this is their signature, this is their liability, that it's complete and honest. And that's all of my preaching for the intake, interview, and quality review test. All right. So go back to Link Learn Certification, sign back on, go to the certification tab, go to the advanced tab, take the intake interview exam after you've studied it in your test booklet. This is what you do at home in the coming week. All right. So I said at the beginning, some of you may be here just because you need to be you want to be a greeter or a screener or a translator or an interpreter or other kinds of support role other than preparing tax returns. If that's who you are, you're done for today. You can sign off, all right? Because the rest of what we're doing today and what we're doing next week is talk about tax law training and how you actually prepare returns and what some of the aspects are. Okay. Let's see here. We're going to change this to 10:20. We're going to resume at 10:20. We're right in between my two slides. Is it 10:30 or is it 10:15? We'll call it 10:20. All right. Let's see. Okay, yes, everybody will receive the slides. They should be emailed to you next week. And sometime next week, I expect that this recording will also be posted. I'm not exactly sure where, on the Free Tax Prep website. So, okay. Moving on. Actual tax returns. Okay. So one of the things the IRS does for us is provide us the software that we use. It's a software called TaxSlayer Pro. All right. It's a special version. They have a commercial version that anybody can go out and buy and use, but this special version just for VITA. All right. It adequately handles all types of returns that we need to do. However, it is not the most powerful free tax, or it's not the most powerful tax preparation software. All right. There are things that it does not do very well. There are things that it doesn't do at all. But it handles what we need it to do within VITA. Okay. One of the things it does not do is a comparison of a joint return, marrying filing joint, versus two separate marrying filing separate returns. All right. We take the position at United Way of Collaborative that we don't make that comparison. For us to do it within this software, we have to create 3 different returns, at least one of which has to be a dummy return because you can't use the same Social Security number twice. We don't have that kind of time. And so we just say to taxpayers, if you think that's something that applies to your particular case, you get to go someplace else. Find another site, find another location, find another way to get your taxes done. Maybe it's a paid preparer, maybe it's doing it on your own with TurboTax. Okay, but let's hit that particular issue right up front. All right, so let's get started. What's this TaxSlayer Pro all about? All right, so we've already talked about you have to sign into the United Way website. We went to the IRS website. Here's number 3. This is the tax preparation website. And this is the link to get there. If somebody would post it in the chat, it might be helpful. vita.taxslayerpro.com.
It's posted.
Okay. And again, I've got a number of slides following this to kind of walk you through how to sign up. Okay. Once you enter that web address, vita.taxslayerpro.com, this is the screen that should show up. You notice that there are 3 light gray boxes across this top banner. 1 Practice Lab, 1 Pro Online, and 1 the blog. Okay. We're going to use Practice Lab for the purposes of taking our certification test. You use Practice Lab for the purposes of whatever additional training you want to do. Okay. Pro Online, the one in the middle, boy, that's the real thing. That's live. Okay. Now you're really creating a tax return. Okay. That's what's going to get eventually submitted to the IRS. At the moment, that is still inactive for 2021 returns that have not yet been turned on. The one on the right, the Vita blog. So this is information from the software vendor, from TaxSlayer, telling us what's going on with their product. Okay. They're giving us updates. This is what's working. This is what's not working. This is what we're fixing, et cetera, et cetera. Okay. These are notices that are being passed through them to us from the IRS. A lot of things show up in the blog. I encourage you to look at the blog. Okay, but for today's purposes, we're going to focus on Practice Lab. We're going to get your account set up. So click on Practice Lab. Go to Create Account. The account information in Practice Lab is actually easier than the one for the IRS, Lincoln Line. So it's just an email address and confirm it. You got to do that. Again, within Practice Lab, you have to create a username. Maybe it's the same one you used in Lincoln Learn. Maybe it's a different one. And now you need to create a password. And this one, unfortunately, is probably going to be different than the one you did in Lincoln Learn, because this one has a 15-digit minimum requirement, 15 digits, with 1 uppercase, 1 lowercase, 1 number, and 1 special symbol. All right.
Question.
So again, once you create your username and you create a valid password, make sure you
I'm
write it
sorry,
down
Jim,
someplace.
But it's not, hello?
Yes?
I'm sorry, I don't get option to create account. Is this ask me enter password or login?
Same here.
What are they saying?
So are you trying to, so make sure that you're going into Practice
Practice
Lab,
Lab.
which is all the way on the left-hand side.
Yeah, yeah, that's the password from the email you guys have sent it that, oh, you share right here. train probe. You have to use that password, not the new
Right.
one. And then you
Alright.
can create other one.
All right, folks, this is, let me,
Copy that train probe from the chat box and then you can paste it on the password and it will allow you to log in.
And then you click on create an account, right?
yep,
Put
go
a
to create
login,
account.
login and then start creating an account.
Yeah.
Or you can log in if you have an account already.
Yeah, I think Jim, you just skip that step. But
Okay.
okay.
And then for
Thank you.
anybody who has already had an account from previous years, then you've already
Okay.
created an account. So you do the Train Pro Web and then you log in with whatever account that you had previously.
Okay. What you're seeing on my screen now is the live version, not the PowerPoint version. All right. So you get here, you click on Practice Lab. I forgot, this is what you got to do. You got to do this one first. Train Pro Web, all capitalized. All right, that's the, sorry, I forgot to make sure you knew that. I don't want to save a password. I've already have an account, but to create an account, you just select create account. Boom. That gets to the screens I was showing on the PowerPoint.
Is it Train Pro?
Train Pro
It's in the
Web.
chat box.
Yep.
If you see it, it's Train Pro Web.
Yep, all capitalization, no lowercase. All right.
I'm sorry, I did not find in a chat box either.
Hi,
So,
chat box means the chat box on the Zoom call.
on this, yes.
On
So
the
chat
Zoom call,
box
if
is
you
a,
go a little bit up, like at 1027, there is a use uppercase, and under that one it says Train Pro Web. Copy that and then put it as the password when it asks first time password, and then it will put you into the web where you have to make your account and everything. Is that helpful? Did you see it? So to find the chat, you see on your
Yes,
probably,
underneath the screen, Zoom, I find the chat box.
Okay.
yes, at 1027, around 1027, there is a password says use uppercase, and then there is a Train Pro Web. Copy that one.
Okay.
And then put
Okay.
it back to your other screen, and then that should work. And then you will go to the create account thing.
Thank you.
Not a problem.
As a suggestion, you might want to keep the chat box open. And if you go up to the upper right-hand corner, click on that option, view options with the down arrow, and just select side-by-side mode. I think that's by default, but if not, select that side-by-side mode, and you can have the chat window open simultaneously with the presentation.
thank you, everybody, for helping us get through that particular screen change. I made a note to make sure on my next presentation to add the Train Pro Web slide screenshot. All right. Get to account information, create an account, email, username, password. Under program type, there's a drop down, select VITA. It asks for a site identification number. that's not required. We advise you to simply to skip that particular entry. At the bottom, security question and security answer. You should all be used to those kinds of things for signing on to various websites. Create your own, select your answer.
So Jim, could you explain the number of characters for the password again?
The password qualifications.
Yes.
Okay, from the top of my head, 15 digits minimum. Uppercase, lowercase, a numeric, and a special symbol. You got to have it all.
15 characters. And write it on your password sheet.
Now write it on your password sheet. Write your user ID name on the password sheet. Okay. When you finally go live, when you're finally at a tech site doing returns, you're going to get yet another user ID and another password. This is just for use for Practice Lab. Okay. That's why we created this password sheet. We've got like 4 different passwords between United Way, Lincoln Learn, Practice Lab, and actual tax preparation. Yep. And some of us will work at multiple sites, have multiple. Yep.
Jim, it's not accepting any 15-character password with all the.
Sanjay, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, you have to use those special characters that are indicated when you are setting the password up. Those only, I think there is only 4 or 5. Oh, okay. Okay, because those, I was using a different one and it didn't take it, but when I use one of the ones that are indicated in there when you are creating the password, it lets you do it. So like for example, I was using the number sign and that's not listed in there. So I had to use the $sign.
No.
Just as an example.
Yep.
Okay.
This is why we're having this class, to help you go through this very laborious process of trying to set up names and passwords. Okay.
I'm sorry, I can't get in, and I think it's because I went in this morning and set up a username. I didn't understand about the password. And so now it won't accept it. It says my username I set up is invalid. So I'll deal with that later unless somebody can help me now.
Just create another username. Create a whole different account.
I
Okay.
usually use my email on this case so that I don't forget about it as a username. So if you keep try with the new email as your username, it should let you log in.
Okay, so let me back up. Okay, go on with the class. I have to.
Yep.
No.
We gotta move on. All right.
Go ahead.
Okay. Once you finally get in, you get to Practice Lab home screen. This particular page has lots of different options. There's training sessions that are here. There's installation sessions. For now, we're just going to focus on going to practice area because we want to actually show you how to create a return. So under Practice Lab Home, click on the button, go to practice area. All right. Let's see. So we're going to actually, I think what I'm going to do is walk through some of this with you. And I think that might be helpful. We're going to do Cook problem on page 104 of your test booklet. But I'm going to stop sharing this overview and actually show you how to get started. Okay. Go to practice area. Okay, the first thing you do is you have a choice here. Select start a new return, which is what we want to do this morning, or go to client search. If you've already started a return and you want to come back and complete it or review it, you go to client search. All right. This is my particular account. So under client search, if I click that, you see I've been playing around in TaxSlayer for a while. Okay. If I come back to Springboard, go to practice lab, go to practice area. I want to start a new return. What's it ask you for very first thing? Social Security number. Okay. So let's see. On the Cook problem, right? 104. I'm looking in my book. Yep. Richard Cook's Social Security number, 328. All right, 00, that's a default. And then make up 4 digits.
Would you repeat, please?
You put in the Social Security number as shown on his card on page 104, 328. The practice lab is set that the middle 2 digits are always 00, and then you make up whatever 4 digits you want for the end. Okay. Then you connect, start return.
Excuse
Okay.
me, and the first 3, we just make
Right.
those up as well?
The
No,
first three are on his Social Security card on page 104 of the test booklet.
On page 104. Okay.
And his first 3 digits are 328.
Page 104. Okay.
Okay,
Okay, 32. Oh, we have 2, 328 and 125.
whatever numbers you want at the end.
No,
I don't,
Richards is the 328, the father.
Okay.
you
So
repeat.
328, and then we
And-
make up the other 4. Okay.
Make up the other 4. And then you repeat it, 328, and the same other 4 that you had before.
And then we hit a start return.
And you
Right.
click start return. Yep.
The social security number that you enter first to create the return, that's going to be the social security number listed first on the return or called the primary taxpayer.
Super.
In the case of a married filing jointly return.
All right. Now, once you get your Social Security number entered for the primary taxpayer, the first screen you get to is what's the filing status? Sometimes that's very simple. Sometimes that's not so simple. Let's read this particular scenario for Richard Cook. He's age 39. He was widowed in 2017. He has a daughter. age 5. He provides the entire cost of the household and more than half of the support for Isabella. Also has childcare expenses. Did not receive the advanced child tax payment. I'm reading right out of page 104. He had 2019, he had earned income of 19,000. That's an interesting comment. We'll get back to that later. He's a US citizen, as is Isabella, lived in the US all year. Received economic payments, better known as stimulus 3, of $2,800. Okay. That's not a lot of information, but it is enough information for us to determine filing status. Okay. So, let's see, what do I want to do here? Stop share. Go to share. Go to 6744. Oh, I pull it up. All right. I'll be with them. Where am I there? And go to share screen. So how do you determine filing status? Well, this is the first opportunity we have to use our resource guide, the 4012. And I think at this point of the presentation, it's just probably easier to watch me than it is to try and, particularly if you don't have it downloaded. But I use these tabs on the left to help navigate. And one of the tabs on the left is filing status, tab B, as in boy. So I click on tab B, and I'm looking for filing status. There's a couple of other things in there that I don't need at the moment. Okay, I'm starting a return. Yep, did that. Entered my social, did that. Okay, you guys are way ahead of this. This is great. All right. This screen is simply saying sometimes if that taxpayer was with you last year or at another VITA site last year, you actually can import some of the data. All right. Yes, we encourage you to do this if you have that option. All right. So we finally get to a decision tree to say, what is the filing status for this particular person, Richard? Okay, walk through the questions. Was he married on the last day of the year? No, he was widowed. Was not married. So come down. Did the spouse die during that year? No, died in 2017. I'm doing a 2021 return. So no. Do all of these questions apply? Did his spouse die in 2019 or 2020? Were you entitled to file a joint return in the year of death? Did you pay more than half the cost of upkeeping the house? Did your son or daughter or stepchild live with you all year, or was your dependent qualify, blah, 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 okay? Don't include grandchildren, that's an important one, all right? No, this doesn't apply. His spouse died in 17, not in 19 or 20. If she did, then perhaps qualifying widower, but she did not. So then you get to this next set of questions. Did you pay more than half the cost of upkeeping your home? Yes, we said that in the example. Was the qualifying person who lived with you more than half the year? Yes, Isabella lived with him the whole year. So we finally got an answer of yes that entitles him to filing status of head of household. So that's the way you take one of these very brief scenarios and walk through decision trees like this that are buried in the resource guide to help you determine answers, okay? Sometimes they're on a flow chart like this. Sometimes it's there's another version that goes over the same things we just did. It's in a question answer bit. You might want to sit there with a taxpayer and go through it. You're going to get to the same answer as you did the other way, okay? So I just wanted to briefly show you how to get into the 4012 resource guide to help answer some very basic questions. Okay, all right. Hopefully you're still in TaxSlayer and you're on the screen that says the filing status. So go ahead and answer that particular question.
There is also this wizard that helps you with that.
I'm sorry, I didn't understand that.
So you see that wizard box on the right? Filing status wizard.
Standard wizard. Yeah, you can use that if you want to. It's unfortunately, it's like a 50 question survey in order to get to the answer. So I really encourage you to use and understand how to use the resource guide, the 4012, as your primary tool for determining answers. Okay, so we selected for Richard Cook, head of household. Went through that decision tree. I click continue. Let's see what it's going to show me. Ah, well, who is this taxpayer? Richard Cook. All right, since I've already got a Richard Cook in my account, I'm going to name him Cookie. Don't worry about that. It's Richard Cook to you. Okay. From the information in the test booklet on the intake sheet, it gives you his birthday. And let's see, 4/1/42. 4/1/1982. Yeah, scroll down. 82. It gives you his occupation, store manager. Then it asks all kinds of other things that are sometimes important and sometimes not important. All right. Is he blind? Is he deceased? Was he a non-resident? One that's important is the first two. When you're dealing with children who are 18 years of old, 18 years of age or older, are they filing on their own or are they still a dependent of their parents? Okay. Then you get down to address. Let's see, 195 Brooks. All right. And In everything in the test booklet, it doesn't give you cities and zip codes. It says YS or your city. So just type in your own zip code. Notice I live in Loveland. And let's see, does it give you a phone number? No, it just says put in a dummy phone number. Wow, finally got through that piece. Got it entered. Boom, what happens next? Do you have any dependents? Does Richard have a dependent? Yeah. So we need to say yes here. First name. Isabella. Tab, tab. Oh, notice that when I tab to the last name, it automatically pulls over Richard's last name. Sometimes that's correct. Sometimes that's not correct. Trying to be helpful, but not all the time is it correct. So make sure you that it is the correct name that shows up on the Social Security card. When was she born? 9/25/2016. What's your Social Security number? Again, 125 shows up in the test booklet. 00. All right. Click the wrong button. Then you need to say, is this individual a US citizen? Of course, we said, yes, Isabella was a citizen. Okay. Then it says, what's the relationship between this dependent, Isabella, and Richard? Oh, look at all these options. Well, we're lucky. She's the first one. She's a daughter. All right. But it could be any of these others in your particular situation. A niece, a nephew, a grandchild, an aunt, an uncle, a mom, a dad, man, all kinds of people. All right. It assumes that the person lived with the taxpayer all 12 months. All right. If that's not correct, use the drop down, select the number of months. Okay. For Isabella, it is all 12 months. Okay. Particularly for a dependent, I look at these questions very carefully. Is she over 18? Nope. Is she disabled? Nope. Is she not your dependent? Yes, she is my dependent, so don't check it. I don't want to claim her for earned income credit. Leave it blank. Is she married? Nope. Did she make more than $4,300? Nope. And does she's a dependent because of a multiple support declaration or a divorce decree? No. Okay. So if none of those apply, you just leave them all blank. All right. If Isabella had a sibling, you would go up here to the top left and it says add a dependent. She has no sibling, so you leave it where it is. These two little buttons here on the right, top right, this little pencil, that's TextLayer's way of saying edit. There's something in the return that I've already created or the information I created about Isabella that I want to change. Okay. There's also a trash can. This will delete that particular dependent. All right. I don't want this person to show up on the return at all. Normally, you put it in, you hit continue. Just showing you how to navigate the various screens. All right. Don't need to worry about death certificates in this example. So I'll go to continue. We did filing status. We did personal information for Richard and Isabel, for Richard. We did it for Isabella, that's dependent. There's nothing in the scenario that talks about an IRS identification PIN. If there is, this is where you go. Okay, so we just hit continue. And now we are done with basic information. Notice on the left-hand side, we've gone from basic information to federal section, and the first part of federal section is income. Okay. Within federal section, income, deduction, other taxes, payments, miscellaneous forms, COVID relief. Some of these you're going to use routinely. Some of these you're going to use very seldom. There's a section on health insurance. There's a section for state returns. If you're doing a Kentucky resident, you're going to need to pull up a Kentucky return. If you're doing an Ohio resident, you pull up an Ohio return. And finally, you get to summary print that kind of shows you, here's my current status, or here's my completed return. And then before you finish, there are a number of e-file questions and things that we need to fill out. We won't get that far at all today. We're just going to focus on the fish piece, federal section, and income. But this is how you kind of navigate through the various screens. Okay. So what I want you to do in your TaxSlayer account, hopefully you're this far as well, I want you to enter the W-2 information that shows up in the book on page 108. And I want you to enter the interest information that shows up on page 108. And I want you to stop when you do those two. I do not want you to try to do the child care on page 109. I just want you to do W-2 and interest. All right. Okay. I'm going to get off of that screen. I'm going to go back to share PowerPoint. Okay. What's showing up on my screen now is the scenario that we just read through. It's on page 104. I walked you through how to determine filing status for Richard, pulled up 4012. We entered the information for Richard and for Isabella. And you're now on the income screen, W-2 and interest, and then stop. All right. So pull up the W-2 input screen. Look at the information on the W-2 that's in your book. And basically duplicate it. You take what's on the paper and put it into the input screen. Okay. Mary, Kathy, anything in chat where they're beginning to do that?
No, nothing yet.
Yeah, I don't see anything yet.
Okay.
Has everybody been able to create an ID and get in? You can like direct message one of us to help out if you're having any issues. There was one person who was, so hopefully what I told them worked.
Jim, do you want to say something about rounding dollars?
Ooh. So 2 entry points. One is, I really like everybody to use cap locks. All capital letters. It just helps us as we're screening through a long list of clients, if all of the formatting is the same, to find that particular client or taxpayer. Also, we encourage you, as the IRS does, is to use only enter whole dollars. So you look at the data, if it's 50 cents or more, you round up. If it's 49 cents or down or below, you round down. You just look at the number and type in the whole number. You don't add, you don't have to put in the decimals. You're just saving a few keystrokes, and you're also making sure you enter the right number of digits. You don't put in 100,000 when you meant to put in 10,000.
I think another tip as you're going through practice lab, if you see something that you aren't sure about, like the W-2 has a D in 12A, even if it doesn't seem like maybe you need it for this example, I always go look it up in the 4012 to kind of cement in my head and learn new things as I go. Personal preference maybe, but a good way to learn about what different things mean.
I don't see any questions or anything in the chat yet right now.
Okay. So we got two input screens, one for W-2. W-2 input screen is quite long. There's lots of different boxes. There's actually a state section at the very bottom. All right. When that's complete, come back and select the interest input screen. And this one's pretty straightforward. I mean, just two items, interest income and early withdrawal penalty. Okay.
I'm sorry.
Okay.
Oh, no.
So if you've got that data entered, on the tax layer at the top right area, you should see a refund monitor. Shows you what the amount of refund is based upon what you've already entered. All right. With the W-2, with the interest, with head of household filing status, what answer did you get? Somebody want to post that or unmute and share their answer? Nobody wants to go first.
Maybe nobody had completed yet.
3194.
3194. All right. Well, all I can tell you is I think that's correct. It's the answer I got as well.
That's from Daniel.
All right. Thank you, Daniel. 3194, based upon the criteria that I mentioned: head of household, one dependent, W-2, interest, stop. All right. That's not the final answer because we still have child care credit to enter. All right. We still have not reconciled stimulus payment. We still have not reconciled advanced child tax credit or child tax credit if appropriate. So we haven't completed this problem. So I'm willing to say at this point, that's where we are. You just do this 3194. I'm not giving you the complete answer. Okay. All right, what's next?
Hey, Jim, if I select number 14, other, I think is the medical insurance, is ask me a dollar amount.
On the W-2 screen,
Mm-hmm. Yes.
other is blank. You don't put anything in box 14. So I'd like to come back and review that W-2.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. So for those of you who have not really studied a W-2, you start with, why are there 3 different boxes for wages? A box 1, a box 3, and a box 5. So, and in this particular case on page 108, why does Richard Cook's box 1 have a different number than box 2, box 3, and box 5? Notice that the difference is $1,000. Now, remember what Kathy suggested. When you see something in box 12, understand what that entry is. Box 12 is coded D. Well, if you go back to your resource guide on the appropriate page, it says, well, what is code D? Code D is a contribution to a employer retirement plan, a 401. And what this is showing us is that contributions that you make to your retirement plan is not subject to income tax, box 1, but it is subject to Social Security tax and Medicare tax, box 3 and box 5. Okay. So sometimes the information in box 12 is the difference that's shown in box 1 and 3, 5. Sometimes it's other information that doesn't impact box 1, 3, 5. As the questioner just raised, sometimes there's other information in box 14. We just enter what we see on the W-2, and the software knows what to do with it. Okay. You notice that when you put in information in box 1, it automatically copied down to box 3 and 5. TaxSlayer trying to be helpful, except when it's not the right answer. Sometimes you need to change what they did. Okay. So you needed to input 42,500 in box 3 and box 5. When you change those two numbers, the calculator for Social Security tax, box 4, Medicare tax, box 6, automatically recomputed. Well, that's good. Box 2 never recomputes. That's withholding. That's not tied to wages directly. That's tied to whatever you and your payroll department have agreed on what your withholding amounts or percentages are. Okay. Finally, at the bottom, you have state information that you needed to enter. The default of state wages always goes back to box 1. And that is appropriate for all 3 of our states, for Ohio, for Kentucky, for Indiana. So that's a good number. That's actually a help. And then you just need to enter the amount of state income taxes withheld for the appropriate state. Okay. Sometime you might have multiple states. So you make multiple entries. You had withholding in Ohio, I had withholding in Kentucky, whatever. Okay. So wanted to just kind of walk you through what this very simple W-2 is telling us. One of the other common things we're going to see in box 12, and we'll go over this in a little more detail next week when Monica goes into part B of our training, is a code DD, dog, DD. And that's the amount of medical insurance through your employer that either the employer paid or you contributed to, and you paid part of it, DD. It basically says you had employer insurance during the year. Another common one we see is the code E, as an elephant. That's for a contribution to a retirement plan for a nonprofit organization, as opposed to a for-profit organization. Might be a church, might be a school district, might be a children's hospital is code E examples. So the common ones you're going to get used to, you're going to know them once you do 3 or 4 returns. The less common ones, you always have your resource guide, you look it up, you say, what does this mean? And you go and you move forward, okay? Everything on a W-2 code we can do. It's all within scope, it's just a matter of what's the classification. Unfortunately, when we get to retirement income on 1099R, 1099 retirement, some codes we can do and some codes we cannot do from a scope standpoint. So W-2s were good. That's where we start to train, okay? But when you see a strange code on a 1099R, make sure you look that up and that it's within scope. All right. Your homework. First of all, as we talked before, we want you to go back and take or finish the intake interview test in Lincoln Learn. We want you to come back to TaxSlayer and finish the Cook scenario, which basically means answering the other questions about childcare and about COVID, all right? Mark your answers in the exam book, in the test booklet. We don't suggest you submit your answers to Lincoln Learn for the advanced test. Wait till you get a little more training next week. There's probably going to be a couple of helpful hints for you. Okay. List all of your questions. Come back next week. Monica is teaching part B. And as a fun thing to do, fun, I'm a tax geek, it's fun. Go into TaxSlayer. At the very top part of the screen, you have the option to change the year. Change it to 2020 instead of 2021. Replicate your own personal tax return from last year using the TaxSlayer software practice lab. Obviously, you're going to dummy up a social security number. That's okay, because it's not legit anyway. But to just encourage you as a way, how do I really learn to use the software? Well, you've already got a tax return completed that you know is correct because it's your own. So go ahead and see if you can replicate it. Okay. So what have we talked about today? We've referred to this publication 4012, the resource guide. You should have that or get that if you don't have it yet. The standard of conduct, you should have already passed that test, so you don't need this particular publication, 4961. If you want to do some more studying on the intake quality review test before you take it, it's publication 5101. And there's actually a online only, not printed, training guide, publication 4491. This is, I don't know how many pages, 500 pages or something, but it goes over a lot of material in depth with examples. Whereas the 4012 kind of says, this is the answer you need to get to, but it doesn't walk you through an example of it. The 4491 is a good training guide to walk you through examples. So let's say, for example, I'm dealing with an education credit. Use the 4491 training guide, read through a couple of pages of that to help you understand what to do and how it's doing it. Okay. Okay. All right. For those of you who do not yet have your test books or do not yet have your 4012s, this is where they are available. They're available at Monica's site at Center for Great Neighborhoods in Covington. They're at the American Red Cross building. And they're up in Butler County at Ohio Means Jobs, across from Jungle Gyms on Dixie Highway. Okay. All of these are Monday through Friday. They've got different hours that they're open. But you can just walk into the lobby and ask for the VITA books and you'll be given them. Again, these PowerPoints will get shared with you next week. All right. Finally, I've given you some homework. This is what I want you to do. You're going to go through and say, I can't remember something, or I really don't know what to do with this, or this just doesn't look like the right answer. Well, send us a message. Free text at UnitedWay, Make sure you give us your name, your email, and your phone number so we can respond to you. So Shayla or Matt will get these requests for help, pass them to one of us as a trainer or answer them themselves, and we'll get in touch with you.
I have a quick question if you have a time.
Go ahead.
The interest income, I cannot find it where to put it in. Though I fill out all W-2s and everything, and I could not find this place to enter this interest income.
All right. So let me come back. Practice lab, share screen. All right, I gotta pull up Cookie, make sure I pick up the right one. All right. Federal section, income, W-2. So interest goes on this third option, 1099 INT. That's what the form is called. I click on that. And the first box is give me an option, interest or dividends. Which one is it? All right, so I click on begin and I say it's interest, the first box. But it could be dividends or it could be OIDs. All right, it's interest. You click on continue. And then you enter the information that shows up on the form 1099 INT. I forget what the bank name was. Okay. So notice also these little red stars. That's a required field. If it's not required, I tend to skip it.
Okay,
I don't,
thank you.
I
No,
don't need, I
I
don't
didn't
need to know, I don't need to know the bank's TIN or their address. All
Okay,
right. In some states you do, but in Ohio and Kentucky, you don't. All right. And then interest income, whatever it was, I forget, $100.
no, hey, Jim, thank you. I just needed how to
Yep.
get it in there. Thank you, appreciate it.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, I'm almost done with the filing of that person, and then
Okay.
that's where I was missing it.
Now-
And I will try to see how I can put this baby daycare thing on it too. Thank you, appreciate it.
Okay. As you're working through the Cook problem, I highlight this particular box over here on the left, COVID relief. So this second box called recovery rebate credit. This is where you enter the information about whether Richard and Isabella received their stimulus payment for round 3. You just have to kind of remember, oh, that information gets entered under the COVID relief header, and it's and he said, yes, they got it. And what was it, $2,800, I think?
Yes.
Yep, okay. We go to continue. This first one is also important. The advanced child tax credit. And you say, hey, Jim, I don't need that one. They said they didn't get the advanced child tax credit. Well, yes, you do need this one. Because this is where TaxSlayer hid the question about whether or not the taxpayer lived in the United States for more than half of the year, which impacts the amount of child tax credit that you can receive, which also affects the amount of child care credit that you can receive, even though it's labeled child tax credit. So yes, they lived in the more than half of the year. And then if they did, how much did they receive? They didn't receive anything, so you leave it blank. Okay. So these are some navigation tricks that, quite frankly, we are all still just learning of how to navigate as TaxSlayer adds all of this stuff that's new just for 2021 into their software. And they put several questions under this COVID relief header. And I think primarily because all of these special things that we're talking about, the stimulus and the child tax credit, only apply to 2021. I mean, unless legislation changes, it goes away for 2022. So it's real easy for TaxSlayer as a software vendor to say, delete this portion, gone. Okay, but so there's a couple of little helpful tricks from navigation to help you with the certification test questions as well.
Jim, I'm glad you opened that up. I couldn't remember if by default it selected yes for the
Nope.
residents in more than half a year or not. So
Nope.
you have to answer that. And if you don't, the software, I think it's during the summary section, it'll prompt you that you need to go back and answer that.
Yeah, so I'm encouraging my preparers to say, okay, you do all of this, make sure you go through the COVID relief questions, just like you go through the healthcare question. You got to answer that question too. Did you have health insurance from healthcare.gov or from the marketplace? Okay, so we just need to be disciplined about using the various components of TaxSlayer to complete the returns. All right. Any other tax layer navigational questions? I know it's kind of early on to ask you. You're going to say, boy, I had a bunch of them next week as I try and work on things. But that I can try to help with. Let's see, I'll pull up the state. You don't need to pass a state qualification or certification test to serve. But if you want to begin to learn what your state returns look like, you state section, add state. You know, so apparently Kentucky's not loaded yet, Mary.
Nope. They're way behind.
All right, well, that's just because they just released their rules.
Right.
So you can either click on the state picture or select a drop down. So like if I'm doing Ohio, I hit continue. You answer a question about residency and go to continue. And then it begins to ask a whole series of questions unique to Ohio. All right. I'm not going to go through this because we've got some people who do Indiana returns, some people do Ohio returns, some people do Kentucky. But just to show you how to initiate a state return. I'm going to hit no on this, go to the bottom, exit the state. Okay. Okay. So I've got some other PowerPoint slides that I can show you as an overview of some of the stuff we've gone over today. You can stick around for that if you choose to. You can also say, gee, Jim, this was great, but I think I'm going to bail out now. I thank you for sending me the slides next week so I can go back over this and we'll go from there. So anything somebody else wants to add? Like I say, I do have another presentation about just the overview of the process that some of you probably have already seen if you did the overview class.
Hey, Jim, the only thing that I would add is the certification process. We do, we're doing the training and it might seem a little bit overwhelming because we do the training, but you take the test on your own. But when you come to volunteer, we understand that you're a brand new volunteer, you don't have any experience preparing a return or preparing a return in front of somebody with somebody you're helping. So, we really try to give you as much assistance as possible. If it's your first one, you sit with an experienced volunteer, you can watch them. If you want to do that, you can always ask questions of the site coordinator because we're there, or of experienced volunteers. So for the most part, the certification process, you're sort of on your own. But once you get to the site, there's a lot of support for you. So kind of don't be overwhelmed by this part. Just kind of make it through this part and then we'll hold your hand at the site.
I think that's pretty common practice across the sites that first year preparers sit with a experienced preparer the first week or the first couple of weeks that they're serving. One of the key reasons for me in Ohio is that's basically when we teach Ohio tax law, is we walk people through, these are the various things you need to learn, because we don't have a formalized training booklet for state taxes.
So
Hey,
no,
hey,
no
Jim.
one's left, Jim. No one's left. They're all
Hey.
still here.
Hey, Jim.
Yes.
I have a question about this Richard one. How does this 2019 income will be included in the W2? I was trying to see if I can put it somewhere else there. It says the Richard income in 2019 was 19,000.
Okay.
Do you explain that somewhere else or I missed it? Or
So this simple answer to that from a test certification standpoint is they've given you that amount of money. So back under basic information, which is not where you would expect to find it, under personal information, under Richard Cook, there is an option to say, use 2019 earned income.
Oh.
Click that checkbox. You'll see a drop down, enter, open up that you say, this is where I put in that amount of money. And that you put in the $19,000 there.
Okay.
Now, I didn't stress that because that doesn't change the answer in this particular problem. It's kind of superfluous information. But to be clear and to be complete, that's where the information goes. But again, it's just another one of those, it's kind of hidden within tax layer. Who would think that you're putting in tax information data back into the personal information screen and entering numbers there, but that's where it goes.
I just almost completed and my return is really low. So I think I did something. I might have messed something up. So I don't know.
Okay, well, we can handle some of those one-on-one. Yep.
Okay.
All right. Okay. Let's see. For those of you who want to stick around a minute, so this goes back to process. All right. This is what happens when a taxpayer comes in. You sign in, the greeter explains the process. Some of this we've gone over in the test. They give them the form to fill out. The greeter doesn't answer tax questions. They just help assist people in making sure they complete it. Complete the survey. Sort the forms. You know what the biggest job here is? Opening the envelopes.
Yes.
So many people come in and the envelopes are still sealed shut. And the first question I ask them when I do that is I say, is this accurate? And they say, I don't know, I haven't ever looked at it. You really ought to look at your tax forms. All right. Greeters and screeners get pretty good at determining what's in scope and determining the level based upon the answers to the questions on the intake sheet. All right. Manage the line if you're manage the line and get a number that's referring to sites that do not have appointments. Okay. All right. When you interview the client or the taxpayer, number one, make them feel comfortable. We're here to help you. We are not the IRS. We are not auditing what you are doing. We're here to help you file a tax return and hopefully get a nice big refund, okay? But we need to ask and probe and ask questions about what's going on. Tell me your situation. Get the data we need, tax forms, social security cards, review the intake sheet, okay? Make sure that we personally, as a preparer, are certified at the right level, all right? And ask if there's any other income that we need to talk about. All right. And then the important question, what else did you bring that you haven't shown me yet? Because they will show you before you finish, even if that means you have to redo an awful lot of what you've already completed. All right. Don't begin to do a return, entering data into the software, into TaxSlayer, until you have thoroughly reviewed the intake sheet and done the interview with the taxpayer. Okay. You may find out it's out of scope. You may find out that they are missing 2 or 3 different documents. You may find out they don't have social security cards and we really need to have them. Whatever it might be, all right? Minimize the amount of pain that people are sitting there waiting to be served and your pain of starting a return that you then need to go and delete, all right? All right. You've seen what the form looks like. Look at that form in detail in the 6744 test booklet. Okay, see what the questions are, see how they're asked, see how they're phrased. Okay. All right, this is a good slide. You see these returns frequently. So put 2 and 2 together. Hey, you both work and you got little kids. Who's taking care of childcare? Did you have to go to a paid provider? All right, or did you pay for childcare? That is so important this year in 2021 because the child care credit is so generous. All right. If you said, no, grandma watched them and we don't pay grandma. Okay, fine, not a problem. But, okay. Another one, you get an old fogey like me walking into your site, all right? You're over 65. Where's your social security statement? All right. This third one, so important for college kids. You said that you cannot be claimed on your tax return, but you're a student and you're still living at home. Or even you're on campus, but your parents are still providing more than half of your support. We have to have this discussion with the college student about, are they still technically a dependent of mom and dad? Okay. And therefore, who gets the education credit, mom and dad or the student? Okay. So in past years, we had the client physically sitting with us as we did tax returns. Depending upon the situation at your particular work site, that may or may not be the case because of COVID protocol. All right. When you get something that you've had to clarify with the taxpayer, write it down on the intake sheet because the quality reviewer is going to have that same question, most likely. All right. As we've said to you several times during the morning, we're here to help you. Once you pass the certification test, once you're at the site, we are one happy team, all working against the same objective. Okay. Ask your peer coordinator or peer preparer, particularly if they are more experienced. Ask the site coordinator. We're here to help and teach. Okay. We do state returns. We do Kentucky. We do once they finally get the software in. We do Ohio. We do Indiana. We do not do local returns. Okay. So many municipalities in Ohio have local city tax returns. We don't do those. Okay. We say, sorry, you need to go and either do it yourself online or go to the state tax office or your local tax office and they can help you do them. Okay. If you're not qualified, if you're not trained, if you're not comfortable, don't do the return. Before you say to somebody, I can't do your return, at least kick it up to your site coordinator to confirm, is it a question of training and somebody else can? Or if it's a matter of, no, we have a different kind of issue, it's out of scope, or it's an integrity issue with the taxpayer. Okay. Once you get all the information, you're not done. You still need to determine. We didn't go through any of this in the other presentation. You need to determine, are we paper filing or e-filing? Strongly, strongly, strongly suggest e-filing. If these people ever want to see their refunds, e-file. There are still people that we paper filed last year that haven't gotten their refunds.
Yep.
The IRS is that backed up. All right. Again, we strongly deposit, direct deposit. So there are something called consents that the taxpayer needs to acknowledge that we can do this on their behalf. All right. A lot of legalese, your site coordinator will go over these with you, or your person you're training with will go over these with you. Add the bank information for direct deposit. There are some other intake questions about, I think there's a question about race and a question about your literacy. Go back in and look at the tax return in TaxSlayer. That's what this review 1040 view means. Before you think you're done, make sure it looks complete to you. Obviously, double check stuff. All right. Explain what's going on to the taxpayer and say we're going to do a quality review. Okay. Some sites have designated reviewers. That's all they do is do quality reviews. Other sites do a peer review. Hey, I'm done with mine. You're done with yours. Let's swap. Okay, we do a peer review. Okay. Self-reviews are not allowed. All right. Self-review, not an acceptable quality review method. Mhm. So we are to do this quality review with the taxpayer. So I'm going through there, I'm doing a quality review, I'm chatting with them as I do it. I said, okay, so I see you've got this child and living with you. Do you have any other children? I see that you're claiming your mom. Where does mom live? All right. It's kind of a chatty thing. But in doing that, I'm confirming everything. When I do a review, the first thing I do is I show them the input screen and I say, is this the correct spelling of your name? And is that your social security number? All right. Accuracy is so important. They're responsible for it. If you get a bad social security number, it's going to get rejected. If you get a bad spelling of their name, it's going to get rejected. Who's left holding the bag with not getting a refund? The taxpayer. All right. It's really important that they do it. When it's all done, they sign the return, or they actually sign the transmittal form 8879 that gives us the authority to e-file. Okay. Everything is put into a big tax envelope and we give it back to them. We only keep copies, and most sites are doing this, of the intake sheet, the W-2, and a 1099. I refer to it as those tax forms that have 3 copies. I keep 1 copy, I give the other copies back to the taxpayer. I attach those to the intake sheet and I keep the intake sheet. Well, why am I doing that? Well, because it hasn't been transmitted to the IRS yet. So after we're done with this, the site coordinator goes home and has another job. They actually transmit it to TaxSlayer, and TaxSlayer submits it to the IRS. If it gets rejected for any reason, it comes back to the site coordinator to say, fix it. Site coordinator may fix it themselves. They may turn it back to their preparer to fix it. They may return it to the quality reviewer to fix it, but it needs to be fixed. We can't let it just sit there and dangle, okay? Oftentimes, more than half of the time, there's something on that intake sheet that either allows me as a site coordinator to fix the return. We mistyped an EIN, a payer's EIN number. Or it allows me to have a discussion with the taxpayer as to what's going on. We can get rejected for, hey, there's a IRS PIN number that was not entered. Okay, well, that's pretty straightforward. Taxpayer came in, they didn't provide us with that particular document. We call the taxpayer and say, I need to see, I need to know what that 6-digit number is, or your return cannot be e-filed. So again, oftentimes there are a number of things on the intake sheet that can help. At the end, you let the taxpayer go home, you wish them a fond farewell, hopefully come back and see us next year, or if something about them you don't like, say go someplace else. I mean, all right. So in theory, you're done. I just mentioned this, site coordinator then submits it. So if we need to have follow-up with clients, what I do is I usually handle the rejects personally myself. Fortunately, I don't have a lot of them at my particular site. I guess I've got my preparers trained pretty well. And usually what I do is a good time for me to call people to follow up is Sunday afternoon. They tend to be home. One call and I can usually reach them. And when you start the conversation with, your tax return has not been filed yet, may I have a few minutes to talk with you? They usually say yes. All right. That's what I got. Okay. You guys are great. You've persevered through all of this. Here's the next steps. We really encourage you, those of you brand new people taking Part A, come back next Saturday, register and take Part B. If you've not registered yet, please go on to United Way, Greater Cincinnati, free tax prep, register for Part B. Then the following week, so that's next week's the 15th, take Part B. The following week, the 22nd, I would encourage you to take, even though you haven't started yet, take the returning preparation, preparer presentation. It goes over a lot of this, what's new in 2021 that affects your tax returns. Okay. You don't have to do that. I encourage you. Definitely, you finished Part A, great. Make sure you take Part B. You got to pass your certification test before you can serve. You get 2 chances, 80% is all you need to do. We never know what your score is because the certification sheet that prints out just says you passed. All right. It doesn't tell us that you got 82% or 100%. You know by going into your Lincoln Learn account what your score was, but we, the site coordinators, don't know what your score was. I would encourage you, any question that you missed, go back and understand why. If you do understand why, you're done. If you don't understand why, ask your site coordinator when you get to your site, or send an email to us and say, hey, I've taken the test, I passed, I missed this one, talk me through it. Now that you've passed the test, we can talk very openly about any test question. We can only do this because of you. You know, we've got 7 site coordinators on the call, but we can't do, what did we do? 8,000 returns last year, something like that, at least 6,000 across the collaborative. We can't do that ourselves. We rely on all of you to help us. Whether you're a grader, a screener, a reviewer, a preparer, you know, we're all in this together. And like we've said many times, it's a matter of we each have our own roles to play. Each site, we didn't talk about this, each site operates similarly but differently. Some sites take appointments, some sites don't take appointments. Some sites may handle, what do I do without a social security card one way, some people may handle that a different way. So just the final determining factor or decision maker at every site is the site coordinator. So Kathy, who works with me at my site, is my assistant, but she always bucks it to me to make the final answer. So, and I've been doing this 13, 14 years. I've only turned to one taxpayer for lack of integrity. I could tell that their story at the beginning of the conversation, at their story at the end of the conversation was not consistent. And I said, I'm sorry, I'm not doing your return. I've done hundreds of returns over the years, and I've only turned one person away. Okay. So people who come in, they are so grateful when they are done. This year, they should see very decent sized refunds because of the increased child tax credit, because of the increased child care credit. Even the Ohio tax rates have gone down, so they should see bigger Ohio refunds than they've seen before. Lots of things are saying people should be very happy at the end of the experience. It doesn't say everybody gets a refund. All right. Beginning of the season, almost everybody does. Those are the people who are anxious to get their taxes filed. End of the season, not so much. They know that they're going to owe money. They know that they've had self-employment. They got to pay Social Security tax in addition to income tax. They know that. All right. Some people, like to say, hey, I always want to pay the IRS. I never want them to take too much of my money during the year. That's fine. That's their choice. And as long as they don't owe more than $1,000, there's no penalty for that. Okay. So you're going to see different flows. We site coordinators talk about the ebb and flow of the season. At the beginning, we get people with the earned income credit, with now the child tax credit, with just W-2s, pretty simple returns. At the end of the season, we get the dreaded brokerage statements, people with investment income, which is great for them. I sure got a bunch of it myself, but sometimes those returns can be a little more complex because of all of the information that shows up on a brokerage statement. So this takes a little more time. At the end of the season, you see the self-employment people. All right. They've taken some time to tabulate their data. So, all right. I am finished. Thank you very much. Any of the other leaders, trainers, want to add a closing comment? I told you we would finish by noon. It is 11:57 on my clock.
I just wanted to let everyone know I added the link to Eventbrite for the Part B training in the chat box. So if you haven't registered yet, you can go to that link and register now.
And that is Shayla from United Way, our new hire there, helping us get everything managed this year.
Yes, thank you.
You weren't here at the beginning when I did introductions.
Or
you were and I didn't know you were here.
Yeah, I had some computer issues today, so I apologize.
Me too.
I guess the only thing I would add is that, this is a super rewarding thing to do, to volunteer. there are a lot of assistance that people cannot get to unless they file a tax return. So yeah, you're really helping people. They're happy that you're looking at their tax papers instead of having to do it themselves, because it can get really complicated. Or maybe it's not so complicated, but people just don't have the access to the technology that they might be able, to file the return themselves. So, this is a great thing to volunteer for.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you
Hello.
for all the help.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi, this is Michelle Ramos. So I just have a quick question. I got disconnected for a little bit, but I don't know if this was covered. So I am bilingual. Is there any chance to do this or learn some of the terms in Spanish to, translate, or is that needed as part of, being a volunteer?
Mary, did you want to talk to that?
I'll let you take it.
Okay. Yes, there are. For sure. So we have a site that has a lot of Spanish speaking people. You Spanish, right? Yeah, Spanish speaking people. They're going to be coming to the Center for Great Neighborhoods site on Monday night. So if that's something that you would be interested in doing, you can contact me or Mary Lepper. I don't know that there are any other sites that have a consistent need. I'm just not familiar.
What about Catholic?
Yes,
Catholic
this is Chris, and Catholic Charities as well uses interpreters. They actually need interpreters in like 7 different languages. But I can pass on some information on that as well.
Perfect. I'm just asking in case there's like a different training or similar training, but in Spanish, or what kind of requirement is needed for that.
So you would just have to be, your site coordinator would have to talk to you about, interpreter ethics, and you'd have to take the ethics and, all the tests. If you're going to be anything other than an interpreter, if you're not going to prepare returns, you would still need to talk to your site coordinator as far as, interpreter ethics, if you're not familiar with that, and then, what they would use, how they would use you. And I'm sure at Catholic Charities, they will know that. And at the center, we know what those are as far as interpreting what you're required to do.
Yes, and the only other difference is we do have intake forms that are in Spanish as well.
Okay.
Yeah, but there's no formalized training in Spanish.
No.
That's correct.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
I think they just isn't this the first year for the 1040 in Spanish?
You
Could be.
can select what how you want your return to show up, Spanish, English, and what language you want any notices to come. It's a question on the intake form.
So Michelle, there are several sites that treat that particularly serve Spanish taxpayers or Spanish speaking taxpayers. So if that's a desire of yours, make sure that's known. And I think when the sites get listed, they indicate languages served.
Yes.
Like the Healing Center in the Springdale does Spanish on Saturday mornings.
Okay.
Through with interpreters. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. Hopefully Monica will see most of you next week.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, and bye-bye. Thank you. Bye.
Cool.
You're down to 10.